Martha, look at her.
Wow.
Look at me.
What's up with that? Look at me.
Look at me.
It looks like a night after a night.
Careful. This is Martha. A moment. Sorry.
That's a
Show
moment.
your sister.
That's a moment right there. Look
Look at that.
This is the moment when I was like
Look at
really
how-
Now, I know this is like herding cats, but
This is the baritone youth, by the way. I didn't realize that until.
I know we're going to do that. We're gonna,
You have to.
You can sit if you want.
on that,
Don't piss off the band.
I'm but you already are on the
I know that. Spelled wrong.
Whoa, my speech! My speech! Hey, look at
I don't know what order.
there's another page right there.
It starts like
Thank God I numbered
13 and then 90,
Be funny.
28 and then back
Yes.
Oh, we have tons, so.
I'll grab one later.
Goes her speech.
Already got like a ton of water on it, and it was like, oh my God, it's melting. I'm not gonna.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to celebrate Jerry's life. It's overwhelming to see how much he meant to all of us. Just to go through what we're going to do is I'll going to introduce and go a little bit of what his life and what he meant. Then Blanca will speak, and we'll have Bob Schneider play Jerry's favorite song.
I have a heart attack and die. Just skip that part. Go to the next thing.
Actually, well, no, we'll just pick you up and then we can go. And,
Leave his ashes here to
oh, I
can't see.
We're told no ashes from the, and we're not going to do
see.
any ashes around here.
just have to
That's
go with
not
the
big
flow.
no-no.
Ask to ask that.
Ashes.
See.
And then Martha will be speaking, and then we're going to open it up to anyone else that wants to speak. Lately, I've been looking at the New York Times with the Ukrainian crisis, and a lot of the pictures there have been of moms with their children as they're going out with babies, and you can see in their faces this steely fear, but steely resolve to protect their children. And that for me was something that I understood that was a mystery to me until just that recently. And the reason why I think of that is the first time I met Jerry, he took a raw onion and bit into it. And I thought, of course, he's always had, he never showed off being tough guy, but he was always a tough guy. So I thought this was his way of showing how tough he was. That wasn't the case. The case was when they were in 1939, when he was born, a few months later, the Nazis invaded his home. And for the first 10 years of his life, it was all about being a refugee in a war. His father died as a partisan fighting the Nazis. When the Russians came over, he and mom had to escape from communist Russia. And in that escape, they, in order to get food, would dig up onions to eat them raw. And on that, as he came into the United States, he moved into a very tough neighborhood. And he was a very bright, but he was always silent, unless he had alcohol in him. He learned to be quiet because of the refugee. Being a refugee meant if you cried at the wrong time, you may be shot by the Nazis or by the Russians, the communists. So he learned to be very quiet and reserved, holding back all his feelings until he had alcohol. So he moves to the United States, and he's living in Spanish Harlem, where he had to fight. He became a very outstanding athlete. He once even tried out for the New York Yankees and went on a full scholarship to the University of Wisconsin. And his mom convinced him to be a computer. And so he got his degree and worked for the Kennedy administration. And then founded a small business for a computer. He was an entrepreneur at that point. He got married. He had a child, a daughter. But there was something missing. And he gave up that entire life and was then found a job for a Paso Natural Gas and moved to El Paso. It is there that he found his life. It is there that he met his lifelong friends, Bob Schneider, John Corky, Joe Hook, all of these people that he, for the first time, could be himself, past that being a refugee, past the danger of always not worrying about being killed. And that's also what he met my mom, is wanted to love. And Jerry then moved through a series, and he went and he stayed committed. For the first time in his life, he stayed committed to our family. He moved to Tulsa, and then he found a job. But in all those cases, he stayed connected to the family. And the thing that I understood about him is how much he loved us, despite all the demons that were chasing him. Despite all of the stuff, despite the fact that the only time he could show emotion, to let himself have emotion, is through when he drank, and then when he numbed himself with his drugs. It is because he was finding a place to call his own. As he grew older and older and older, he grew more and more concerned with the life and love. Henry Nouwen once said that that your life, at the end of it, it's not so much what accomplishments you had, not so much your reputation, not so much how much power you had, not so much how much things you acquired, but it is the love that you inspired in others. And looking around at all of you, I know he had a successful and loving life. And that is his recap. The moments that I'll remember was the first time we went fishing. He had loved to go fishing. He had the highest equipment, and he stuck Blanca and I with little fishing lines on our wrists. And it was Blanca who caught the fish that day. And he was so angry that, quote unquote, but he wasn't. He was also very proud that she caught the fish. They put the fish on a big leaf of lettuce, and he would tell the story over and over, just to show how much he loved Blanca. He loved each and every one of us in a deep way, despite all that had happened to him. And it is interesting, as Martha will share, that he was able to overcome both his hatred of the Germans and the Russians. The Russians, just now, he had a Russian club that he would go to and make friends. And it was a way of him finding peace from where he grew up. Now I'll invite my sister.
Awesome, Tito.
Well, I'm glad my speech didn't go away after all, but Mr. Fig, Jerry, Jerome. Well, here we are. It was kind of like a wonder when this moment come, because it was a wonder. And as my brother described, a survivor. He has methods in his ways. Some of us understood him, some of us didn't. But what I want to share with you is how it is that Carmen and Jerry, Mr. Fig, worked. I know that's a big question, because my mom was high energy and Jerry was a big personality, and how did this couple come to love each other? and actually work. So what I want to do is set a scene on a Sunday with these two people. Living with them, they lived and worked for their Sunday. My mother would have already shopped in Juarez at the market on a Saturday. And she would wake up and she'd start her little holistical, whatever, Mexican homeless fusion cuisine. That was their deal. Chicken carne, whatever it was, and they were happy. The one thing they waited for was the newspapers. There was a huge stack of newspapers that would arrive. Or sometimes my mom would pick them up the night before. And Jerry would go through them, and all he was looking for was crossword puzzles. He would go through crossword puzzles like in minutes versus hours. I know at one time they had little competitions with his sister Alona. And this told you that Jerry was very, very smart man. Very smart. He was a huge personality. And growing up, he was intimidating. This fit man intimidated myself, my sister, and my brother, as he came into my mom's world. And there was a time where I felt, and we all felt, how can we match up to this man? This enormous personality, and has my mother's attention. And so we learned to be bold around him. And watching him do these crossword puzzles, showing how smart he was in intellect, I wasn't, and everyone knows, the worst trivia game memory person. And Jerry's memory was like a trap. I mean, he can remember, and he'd be able to tell us all the stories and all the details of each and every one of us. That's the kind of thing that he would do. And he was a great storyteller. But as a young person, this intimidated me, so I learned to be bold, and to this day, I really attribute some of my bold stages in lives where I had to make changes to Jerry teaching me you just have to be strong and survive. So, but part of that boldness was something that, in a way, changed at some point, because I believed that I had a say in Jerry and Carmen's relationship. And it's just foolish, very foolish, because they truly love each other. And there comes a point where you really realize that not only do these two people go together, there's a lot of people that, if you think of it, even their names go together. For example, Delona and Bruce. And that's how we have Greg. Katie and Bob. Happy anniversary. Mary Allen and Uncle Tito. Tia Martha and Hamilton. Rochi, Chachi. And of course, Carmen and Jerry, Mr. Big. Our memories are with all these people, and they went together. And foolishly enough, thinking that we each have a say in these individual relationships is a fool's game. So, Jerry and Carmen worked at all the stages of their lives. And my foolish errand one day I thought had worked, because Jerry announced, when we were trying to figure out the date, he was no longer going to travel. So that would mean my mom. We'd get our mom, Mrs. Fig, to ourselves. And I thought, this isn't going to work. My mom, that was her game. She was traveling to each and every one of us, different important times of our lives, going to all the major events, and Jerry would be behind, left behind. And that's a huge sacrifice. That is one of the most loving things he could have done for us is let my mom have her moments with us. And she would be gone for long periods of time. And sometimes I wondered with my mom's high energy, maybe Jerry just needed a little bit of peace. But in reality, she always would count the days, leave him with his little beers, his little cigarettes, his food done, and that's the way they managed to each have what they both needed within their relationship. So when my mom passed away, and all these stories, things got very quiet. They were quiet for a while. And I remember one day, my cell phone rang. It said, Mom's cell. And I immediately knew it was Jerry. And my thought was like, oh my God, something's happened. So I pick up the phone, and it's Jerry, and he's like, Blanca, listen, the Red Sox are playing the Yankees. And I know your son, Brian, is a big Red Sox fan. Where is he right now? And that's the way the conversation started. And then it went on to just the nicest, like, it was Jerry remembering things, and I was like, Jerry, I don't remember that. Why do you remember? It was like so much. And at the most beautiful end of this conversation, he said, you know, Blanca, I know you're going to think this is weird, but I have to tell you, I love you. And I said, I looked at Jerry, and we hung up, and I realized how much he was missing my mom, coming home with all those stories of all of us, and how much he truly, truly loved all of us. And I want to thank my sister for stepping in for Jerry. And it wasn't easy, but she's really came through. And she would always say, my mom would have wanted this. And my mom would have wanted to stay. But we're all here for him. Because they truly love each other. And thank you all for coming.
You want the chair, Bob?
When I heard Fig passed away, this is his favorite song, believe me. He sang it thousands and thousands of times. I think some requests we're done with this one. By America. Well, I tried to make it Sunday, but I got so damn depressed. And I set my sights on Monday, and I got myself undressed. I ain't ready for the altar, but I do agree this time that a girl should be a friend of mine. Well, I keep on thinking about you, Sister Golden Hair Surprise, and I just can't live without you. Can't you see it in my eyes? I've been one poor correspondent. I just do too hard to find that a girl ain't supposed to be a friend of mine. Will you meet me in the middle? Will you meet me in the earth? Will you love me just a little, just to let you know the word? Though I tried to fake it, I don't mind saying, just can't make it. Oh, I keep on thinking about you, Sister Golden Hair Surprise, and I just can't live without you. Can't you see it in my eyes? I've been one poor correspondent. I've been too hard to find that girl ain't supposed to be a friend of mine. Different song, but that was the one you always had me play. I don't even know what it means, but thank God we got Alexa. I heard your dad Alexa's been singing that to me for all years. Ever got a request or anything about it? If we do, why don't we do, we don't see everybody, so let's do 12 Days of Christmas. Are we ready for that?
How about the one song he learned, Froggy Went A-Courtin', if you remember that?
Okay. Now Froggy went a-courtin' and he did go, Froggy went a-courtin' and he did go, Froggy went a-courtin' and he did go to the coconut grove for the midnight show, Martha, she was a hat check girl, Hat check, Martha. She was a hat check girl, not the hot chick. Martha, yes, she was a hat check girl. He thought he'd give that chick a whirl, She said, not without Tito's consent. Now, Tito covers a wide range here. Not without Tito's consent. Not without Tito's consent. Not without Tito's consent. I wouldn't marry the president. Sauntered up to Katie's side. Sauntered up to Katie's side. Sauntered up to Katie's side. Said, Katie, now you want to be my bride. I want to do a song. I have so many. This is one of my favorite songs. Spanish. How many speak Spanish?
Español.
Solamente una vez. Amén la vida. Solamente una vez. Y nada más. Una vez nada más en mi huerto brilló la esperanza. La esperanza que alumbra el camino de mi soledad. Una vez nada más se entrega el alma con la dulce total. My favorite word. Renunciación. Whatever the hell that means. Renunciación. Sounds good, doesn't it? Let's do a little renunciación. Y cuando ese milagro realiza el prodigio de amarse, hay campanas de fiesta que cantan en el corazón. Hay campanas de fiesta que cantan en el corazón. I got the high note coming up. Hay campanas de fiesta que cantan en el corazón. And those are 90-year-old vocal cords. 80-year-old vocal cords.
80.
All right.
It's a lot of fun. Think of anything else we do. How about if you're happy, you know it, clap your hands or something a little easy.
We'll do that at the
We're
restaurant.
going to do it at the restaurant. We're going to have.
Oh, Monsieur Robert.
They're going to get me kicked out of the restaurant at 79 years old and kicked out of a restaurant? Hope there's a whole person's home music.
Not a voice.
Now we have Magda.
Hey, Tia Pato's coming aboard. I'm Tia Pato. Of course, my speech has kind of already been repeated by Tito, by Blanca, etc. But it doesn't matter. Here I go again. Dzień dobry. Anybody know what it
Dzień
is?
dobry.
Dzień dobry.
That Jimmy's dead.
No, it means good day in Polish.
It may be.
Dzień dobry.
Nice try.
It was Spanish. And this is what Jerry and I would say to each other on the phone. Every weekend or during the week, he would call or I would call him. And we started with Dzień dobry. Well, as you well know, we are here today to honor and celebrate the life of Monsieur Jerome Figuski, whom we all call Jerry. Again, like my nephew said, he was a Polish immigrant who came to America, getting away from the Germans and Russians that invaded his country. He was a very young boy when he escaped with his mother, and they survived, like people said, running through the fields and eating raw onions. He loved raw onions, and he taught me to love them. I love raw onions. So, his father, sad to say, stayed behind to defend his country. He never saw his father again. As he arrived to New York as a refugee on a boat, he saw the Statue of Liberty. He had never seen such a magnificent sight. And on that boat, a stranger gave him an orange that he had never seen or tasted before. And he peeled it, and he found it to be delicious. And of course, as we know that he loved to drink, we now realize why he loved his orange juice and vodka, called Screwdriver. Jerry married my sister, Camelena, and he became part of the Villalobos clan. And he had great respect for my mother and always called her Mrs. V. Eventually, Jerry moved to Dallas to work for American Airlines. He was a brilliant man, extremely intelligent and very good with computers. So after I moved to Germany, he did not want to go visit me. It didn't matter if Bob and Katie had also been over there working. He did not want to go because of the memories of what the Germans had done in his country. But then Hamilton convinced him to come and visit us. And after that, he did come, not once, not twice, but many times over. And he loved all the moments that we had in Germany. I think he especially loved the moment when Bob and Jerry visited Heidelberg.
I mean, you got very, very drunk in Heidelberg.
You don't remember it, do you?
No, I don't.
No, they never.
That's not there anymore. I forgot.
Well, in any case, as you well know, Jerry was a fun-loving person who loved his vodka and his beer. So we're here today together to honor him. Let's remember always to laugh, love, and live as he would have wanted. Nostrovia.
Prosit, ein Prosit der Gemütlichkeit. Ein Prosit der Gemütlichkeit. Eins, zwei, drei. Drink that sucker.
And my last phrase or statement is Auf Wiedersehen. Jerome. Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen. Very good.
And now I was going to open it up, but someone already had said that they wanted to speak, so I want to turn it over to Carlito.
So yeah, I had
This way,
over this
camera.
way. All right. Yeah, so Jerry was definitely my go-to uncle in my awkward sort of antisocial teenage years, which probably lasted like 15 years. But the thing that we would do actually while sitting over in the corner and drinking tequila was actually talk tennis. So I actually finally had someone that I could talk about the programming projects that we were doing, the stuff that he was doing at work. And so we'd sit there over tequila shots and talk about construction setup and what he was doing for American and things like that. And I remember when he finally got out of assembly programming, being very, very old school, but very brilliant with it. And, you know, finally like learned a higher level language and was like, oh, this new C, and I was like, that's been around for like 30 years. Language. And like, he was like, all right, well, can you talk to me about it? Can we go into it a little bit? Because like I've heard that it manages or registers for you, which again, technical details, but like, and we actually again sat down and chatted about like, okay, well, this is how you have to think about it differently. And he actually just listened to me then finally on like, hey, here's how I think about programming. Here's how I think about computers. And so like that combination of like intelligence, but also just being willing to listen to your little nephew, talk about things and actually bond over like some of that basically deep technical like geeking out was something I will definitely always cherish.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
Yeah. Anyone else, please?
I have one little thing.
Of course.
I have many things, but when we came to El Paso, I'd never been in the South at all. And we had been in Germany for 5 years, which I truly enjoyed. And Bob comes and says he's going to go to El Paso. I go, El Paso? I can't speak Spanish. I don't, that's just not the place for me. So I send him down and I stay in Munich with my job. But I also sent 2 little kids. And so I finally said, well, no, this cannot happen when my daughter tells me over the phone, well, Daddy met somebody really nice here. And I go, well, with, like, what kind of a person is it? Well, it's a lady, Mom. I said, okay, well, I think your mom's coming down. So, and the next thing we meet is Martha and Jerry and Carmen and Daniel. And it was like my whole life changed because I hadn't been in such a happy situation where everybody loved everybody else. It didn't matter. If we had some instances where Jerry threw all the food up against the wall and wore us one night, we still ended up being friends after that. And I think it was, your sister was so generous with her love. And then Jerry learned that from her, and it just worked beautifully. And I mean, it was the best time in my life, I have to say. And I'm so glad to see you again.
And our surrogate mom.
Hi, I'm Richie. The neighbor. Jerry's and Carmen's neighbor. I had to move to take care of my parents like about 8 years ago. So that was really difficult because I went from being independent, living in South Beach, living the life, and then all of a sudden I'm in a one-bedroom apartment with 2 old people. So my mom was really sick, so I was taking care of her, and it was really difficult to deal with being the caretaker of my mother. So I would go outside, smoke a cigarette, and I would meet up with Carmen, and I would vent, and she would listen. She always made me feel better. She always had a very optimistic and very happy outlook about everything. She would always tell me, hang in there, don't worry, everything's fine, good job, and it would always make me feel better. So then when she passed, I felt bad because Jerry was alone. So me and him became friends, and I would help him out, with the cleaning department, taking care of things that he wasn't able to. I would get him wine, I would Dixie, Mercado, red wine, and he would pay me to clean his house once a week instead of hiring a maid. He would, pay me because I didn't have a job, and that meant the world to me because I didn't have any money. So, and then towards the end, during the pandemic, I started collecting these dolls. I remember Jerry coming up to me, it was like mid-November, December, and I cleaned his house, and he would encourage me to pay me for the cleaning, and then he would go, this is an extra 20, so you can go buy dolls. And that was so sweet to me. That really meant a lot to me. So, towards the end, when he fell, one of the first times he fell, I called Carmen and I told him that, you know, he had fallen and he had a lot of injuries and he didn't want to go to the hospital. So, for like about a week, I was taking care of him, putting the bandages on him, taking them off. And he looked at me and he goes, Richie, I really appreciate you. And I really consider you a friend. And it was really sweet. So, that was my interaction with Jerry.
So you kind of beat us to the punch because the other bewilderment and question people were asking themselves is, how did Jerry survive after my mom was gone? Because she did everything for me. I don't even think she knew how to boil water. And then with my sister being in Dallas and not being, you know, here, she needed a surrogate of Carmen. And sometimes there's just a miracle of happenstance, if you want to call it. But Richie was there. And he filled this role. And we are so grateful. And these are for you.
Oh, awesome.
And thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. He's a good guy.
Yeah. Well, you understood him. Which is good.
We would fight a lot.
Yeah, okay. Got it. We knew there was something. He wasn't trying to hit on you or anything.
A lot of times his fighting was his love language.
And I knew when he had enough, I knew. So I would leave him alone. But I would push his buttons too, just to get a reaction out of him. So, thank you.
Does anyone else, please?
So Jerry's meant a lot to me. Over the years, well, first, I was the best man and the best dog at their wedding in Vegas. So I came down from Salt Lake and
We so love.
we had a great time in Vegas when they got married. But over the years, Jerry just was literally the life of a lot of things that we did, adventures that we had and all of that. I remember him driving his Fiat with his head sticking out the top and first shaved it. We got that little Fiat convertible and stuff. So there was a lot of cool moments. I remember going to the Sun Bowl games and carrying his little brandy bottles and stuff. So we had lots of memorable moments together. And he would always tell me, and it fits right with what Tito had said about his life, that the best thing that happened over the course of his life was joining and being part of the family. And it was that he felt really, for the first time, a place where he belonged. He truly felt that, and after coming in, I passed away. When we would talk, he would say how grateful he was for having all the support and everybody that was supporting him and making him feel part of. And so Jerry was just amazing. Of course, you know, there's all kinds of moments that we can talk about, parties and going to Heidelberg and all of those things, but it was really that Jerry was just part of the family. He truly belonged, and he felt it. So he will be missed.
I hate to cut it off, but we have reservations and everyone. Oh, I was wondering if Bob could finish it off with one
one more song.
Oh yes,
So
we're
we're
gonna
gonna
have a lot of music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So-
this
so
is
we
not
don't- and so-
ending
Yeah,
as
this
moving
is a
to the restaurant.
celebration.
Relocating to the restaurant, and we want Bob to sing more and more and more.
Not here.
Because we have ceviche and we have food, very good food, at the Incan restaurant. Please, everyone
Bob,
join us.
You need to ask, am I gonna